Okay, so in a beehive, the worker bee has cooperative labor. During the course of a worker bee's life, once they're hatched at 21 days, they go through a series of biological changes just like we do in our lifetime. And their body changes just like ours does. So at day 1, they begin to clean the cell, and they can do that for up to 16 days. And the activity really fluctuates based on whatever the colony needs. So they can clean. Meanwhile, it takes a few days for the hypharangeal, it takes 3 days for these little glands on top of the worker bee's head, the hypharangeal glands, and that's where royal jelly comes from. And once those secretions begin for that bee, its sole purpose is to feed the larva, because like we said, the larvae, they use a lot of royal jelly. So then those begin to dry up, and it changes to fanning to keep the hive cool. It's to evaporate honey. So they'll fan and kind of keep the airflow going. And they start to do nectar transfer. So all of these things kind of are happening simultaneously. And nectar transfer is when the house bees go down into the front door, wherever the foraging bees are coming into the colony. And those foragers give that house bee the nectar that they've collected. And the house or the forager goes back out, and the house bee goes back up. And through a series of food exchange called trophallaxis, the honey is put where it's supposed to go. And the pollen, they also carry pollen on kind of the backs of their legs, called pollen baskets, the foragers do. And they bring that in and give that to the house bees as well. Then as soon as the hypharangeal glands start to dry up, then they start to excrete wax. And this happens in their abdominal area. And depending on what the colony needs are, if you are a second-year beekeeper and you have a ton of wax already and you have all nice comb from last year, the bees aren't going to make as much wax. So they're going to be busy making bees. But for a long time, the bees can make wax. Then when those glands dry up, they fly out and forage. And they'll forage for pollen, nectar, a product called propolis that they use. It's bee glue, and it's from tree resin. They love stickiness, sticky chemistry. Bees are chemists. They love chemistry. So.
Sounds like I have evergreen trees.
Yes, they love saps from conifers or any like willows, anything that's oozing, they like. So they forage for 42 days, and there are studies that are saying that it's approximately 125 miles that bee forages in its lifetime. So it doesn't fly 125 miles away, but it forages for 125 miles in its lifetime. So that's kind of division of labor. Any questions? Yes?
So the more wax they have, the quicker they'll be jumping on to making honey.
Yes, as soon as they get wax built onto the new frames, then they'll be able to make honey. If you can start out with wax comb, it actually will give you about 30% more honey at the end of the season.
That's why with the mature beekeepers, they cut the end up to reuse the comb part.
Yeah, they actually just, once this has wax drawn on it, you can use this for several years. You wouldn't destroy the wax. You can just give this back to the bees with the comb on it, and they'll reuse it. So it's kind of cool.
More honey versus more wax, or what?
Correct. They'll make more babies. They'll make a larger population, and the larger population can gather more nectar to make more honey. Because the idea is to get as many bees as you can by June, which is when most areas have their major nectar flows. So you really want to see a huge volume of adult bees increase from April to June. So in April, you're going to start out with 10,000 bees in your package, and by June, you're going to grow it to 65,000. so that they can then go out and get as much nectar and pollen as they can.
5,000 bees will fit in that.
Probably another couple of boxes. Yeah.
If you don't put the boxes on, do you limit your number of bees into a band?
If you don't put enough boxes on, your bees will swarm. And so they'll take the old queen and half of the honey and half of the pollen, and they'll go move to your neighbor's tree. So you always want to make sure that they have plenty of room.
So when you stop adding on top and start a new set of boxes?
Well, you would need another queen for another colony.
Would it make another queen if you split those boxes? It just take longer, right?
If they had the appropriate age brood, like the picture with the larva that I showed you, then they could make a new queen. So now we're going to talk a bit about equipment. We're going to talk about hives and tools. So D&B has these nice kits, I think, and I'm sure that you can buy things individually. Down here is the bottom board. So that's the solid piece that goes on the ground. And I think they'll also be getting some screened bottom boards, and that's for varroa mite control and for ventilation. Those are very nice. And then there are 2 brood boxes, and the words are interchangeably used: supers and brood boxes and brood chambers. Sort of all means the same thing. So at the beginning, it can be kind of confusing when people are saying all of these words. But if they say a deep box, they mean a box that is 9 5/8 inches deep. And then a medium box is, these size boxes are 6 5/8 inches deep. So you're going to have 2 brood boxes with 10 frames in each. Then you'll have a queen excluder, like we talked about, that metal grate. And then on top here, this is a deep honey super, and you can use mediums or you can use deeps. It's entirely up to you. Then this has a migratory top with a metal lid. D&B has, they're pre-treated with the treatment that comes on all of their boxes rather than metal on top. And you can also use 2 medium boxes. It's the same volume. 2 medium boxes is the same volume as 1 deep. Even though the measurement's a little bit different, it's kind of the same volume. And we're going to be, this system is called Lange Stress. It was patented by Lorenzo Lange Stress. And he was the first person that observed what's called bee space. And bees live in 3/8 of an inch. And he noticed kind of when they were building their combs and they were building, the space in between was that measurement. So he made it so that we could move these to our convenience, because before Lange Stress, it was a deconstruct or a crush comb situation where they destroyed all of the comb. And they kind of destroyed the hive at the end of the year. This system makes it so that you don't have to do that and the bees can reuse, which is very nice. Inside are the frames, and again, we want to learn what is on the frames. So each frame contains comb and either brood or honeycomb, and different types of foundation can be used. The bees don't have to have foundation, but it's great for you to have foundation because that makes things more expedient when you're working. This gives the comb a lot of support so you can work with ease and speed. When you don't have foundation, it's much slower. And when you have this, you can turn it upside down easily. If you don't have a foundation, and you have to be really careful, because when these get heavy with honey and with bees, when they just have bees, they weigh a couple of pounds, and if it's full of honey, it weighs about 7. So in the upper corners, again, I was telling you about how bees live in a circle. So there's always going to be a band of honey right around here in the corners, and then a band of pollen. And then beneath this are all of these open cells that the queen is going to be laying eggs, and it will all be kind of in a round shape. So you want to look for that round shape and the open cells. And that's kind of what you want to look for on a frame. Pardon me? Yes, this would be in the brood box. Yep. The open cells are indicative of the brood chamber because the queen needs a place to lay all of the eggs. Yes. He has what's called a frame lifter, and that's one of these. And so if you have difficulty with your hands prying the frames out, and the bees will kind of weld everything together, you can grip the frame this way with two hands usually. And when you're doing an inspection, you want to look at it in this orientation, probably not really this orientation. It's easier to kind of see what you're doing if you hold it this way, but that's what that is. And those are nice apparatus, but not a must-have. So good ideas for frames inside the boxes are, I liked when I have a person that I'm mentoring, there will be 10 frames in each box. And if you take a Sharpie pen and you mark those frames from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way across so that they're numbered. And then you make sure that the numbers are always together. You don't want a 1 here and a 2 over here and a 3 over here and a 4. You always keep them in order. Nest organization is really important. They like it when you put things back the way that it's supposed to be. Because when you go in and you inspect and you're moving things around, it takes them several days to kind of get it back how they want it to be. So if you assist in keeping the nest organized the way that they drew the nest, it's helpful. It's helpful to them, and they can kind of get things moving along. Once you've gone in and messed everything up, it's easier to clean up. If you see anything that you want to check or have a person that has a little bit more experience come over and look at, you want to take a thumbtack. I just like to take a thumbtack and put it on the top. Just on the top right here. So you have all your nice numbers across, and now you're seeing something that's kind of questionable on this frame, so you stick a thumbtack in it, and you have your beekeeping buddy come over and look at that frame. You don't have to go through your whole colony to find it again. So it's nice just to have it marked. Any questions about the frames? There will be some, there's the black foundation and the yellow foundation. And again, the bees don't care what color the foundation is. These are for honey, and this is for the brood. And it's just easier to see the little eggs against the black background of this foundation. So that's why it's dark.